I am Jim Hallenbeck. I'm the president and CEO of Black Hills IP, and I'm excited to introduce to you Dr. Manjeet Rege, who is a doctor of computer science at St. Thomas University. He's a professor and department chair of graduate programs in software and data science and director, Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence at the University of St. Thomas. Dr. Rege is an author, mentor, thought leader, and a frequent speaker on big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence technologies. In addition to being continuously engaged in teaching and research, Dr. Rege frequently consults and mentors various industry-leading organizations as an expert who provides guidance for building machine learning and artificial intelligence practice and applying innovative data science approaches. We also have Tom Marlowe, who is the president of Black Hills IP Renewals, and he's the chief technology officer of Black Hills IP. He's a former chief patent counsel for Fairchild Semiconductor, and he's a registered patent attorney. Tom is also co-chair of the AIPLA Practice and Innovation Committee. And he, within the AIPPI, he is involved in the standing committee for IP office practice and procedure. Also joining us is Adam Reese. He is an IP automation specialist lead with Black Hills IP. He is currently a data sciences, Master of Sciences and Data Science student at the University of St. Thomas with Dr. Rege. And again, my name is Jim Hallenbeck from Black Hills IP. Just a little bit of housekeeping first before I turn this over to Dr. Rege. We are recording this, and we just want you to be aware of that. Questions you ask can be submitted online. We also ask that you follow us on LinkedIn and go to Black Hills IP to learn more about our webinars and other resources and our different service offerings. So why don't we go ahead and begin with Dr. Rege? If you'd like to go ahead and share with us what you have today, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim, and welcome everyone. Really excited to have you guys join us on this webinar here today. Let me start off talking about what happens in a minute on the internet. You see all of these examples here about the number of millions of text sent that are sent around, email sent, the number of amount of streaming that happens in a minute. So many of these interactions are made possible by APIs, which explains why they have grown enormously popular in recent years. They offer simplicity, efficiency, but a couple of other important changes in the industry really helped grow their popularity. First, the enormous growth of mobile apps that frequently talk to backends over the web. Secondly, the rapidly emerging Internet of Things promises to bring common devices or take common devices or make them more smarter in our everyday lives. So these days, an API's speed, extended reach, and third-party integrations make them key business drivers, and throw in their ability to be customized to fit any developer's needs, and you can see why they are everywhere. Now, what is an API? Let me talk about that for a minute. API stands for Application Programming Interface. APIs are mechanisms that enable two software components to communicate with each other using a set of definitions and protocols. For example, the Weather Bureau's software system contains daily weather data. The weather app on your phone talks to this system via APIs and shows you daily weather updates on your phone. So APIs let your product or service kind of talk with other products and services without having to know how they are implemented. This can simplify app development, saving time and money. When you're designing new tools and products or managing existing ones, APIs, give you flexibility, simplify design, administration, and use, and provide opportunities for innovation. A few examples of APIs. Because APIs allow companies to um, open access to their resources while maintaining security and control, they have become a valuable aspect of modern business and personal applications. Universal logins, right? So a popular API example is a function that enables people to log into websites using their existing Twitter, Facebook, or Google profile login details. So this convenient, feature allows any website to leverage an API from one of the more popular services for quick logging, saving them time and hassle of setting up a new profile. Internet of Things. Smart devices offer added functionality such as internet-enabled touchscreens and data collection through APIs. A smart refrigerator can connect to recipe applications or take and send notes to mobile phones. Um, Mapping apps, in addition to the core APIs that display static or interactive apps, these apps use other APIs and features to provide users with directions, speed limits, points of interest, and so on and so forth. Um, Twitter. Now, each tweet contains descriptive core attributes, including an author, a unique ID, a message, timestamp, when it was posted, the geolocation, all of that metadata. So Twitter makes the core attributes of these public tweets and all the replies available to developers and and also allow them to post tweets on other web pages via the company's API. Um, APIs are an integral part of the growth in software as a service products. So platforms like CRMs often include a number of built-in APIs that let companies integrate with applications they already use, such as messaging, social media, and email apps. APIs, one way to look at APIs is they're essentially the concierge of the digital world. So let's take a real world example of an API used in buying movie tickets. You go to the movie site, you enter your movie, your name, the credit card information, and you print out your tickets. But there's a lot that goes on between you entering your information to you actually receiving your ticket. An API and APIs actually do that. They are the glue of the digital world. They collaborate behind the scenes with other applications, making calls to each other to deliver data, um, to basically deliver data that is required. This type of integration is seamless because you never know when a software role passes from one application to another. Um, so, one useful analogy is to think of APIs like a hotel concierge. It's you need something, you go to the concierge, and the concierge kind of takes care of that. So APIs are essentially concierge of the digital world. They enable businesses to speak the same language, and they power the global digital economy. Now, who creates these APIs? Um, Large tech companies, especially social media companies, frequently make their aggregate data available to the public. Um, Perhaps, you want to access all tweets that mention hashtag IP or hashtag legal. Now, what can I do? If I need those tweets with hashtag IP and hashtag legal, what if I emailed Twitter and asked for a spreadsheet of all of these tweets? First of all, I don't think they're going to respond back to us. But then, even if they did, for whatever reason, you have this existing spreadsheet with you that never gets updated, right? It is static in time. You got that 2 weeks ago, and then after that, there have been more other tweets that have been sent out with those hashtags. But if I make use of an API and query that Twitter API specifying hashtag IP and hashtag legal, and I keep on importing newer and newer data as it is getting tweeted out, I have built a data pipeline that is getting the data from the Twitter API into my database. So it's been said that APIs have the potential to put people, back in control of their data and at the center of the ecosystems that serve them. So APIs enable open banking, open healthcare, and could eventually lead to, open everything. Let's talk about benefits of API. APIs, simplify design and development of new applications and services and integration and management of existing ones, but they offer significant benefits to developers and organizations at large. First is improved collaboration. The average enterprise uses almost 1,200 cloud applications, many of which are disconnected. APIs enable integration so that these platforms and apps can seamlessly communicate with one another. And through this integration, companies can automate workflows and improve workplace collaboration. Without APIs, many enterprises would lack that level of flexibility. Accelerated innovation. APIs offer flexibility, allowing companies to make connections with new business partners, offer new services to their existing market, and ultimately, access new markets. Um, Many companies choose to offer APIs for free, at least initially, so that they can build an audience of developers around their brand and forge relationships with potential business partners. So that is where data monetization comes in. If the API grants access to valuable digital assets, the business can then monetize it by selling access to it as well. System security. APIs are able to separate the requesting application from the infrastructure of the responding service and offer layers of security between the two as they communicate. For example, API calls typically require authentication credentials, HTTP headers, cookies, or query strings can provide additional security during data exchange. And then, finally, end user security and privacy. Just as APIs provide added protection within a network, they can also provide another layer of protection for personal users. When a website requests a user's location, which is provided via a location API, the user can then decide whether to allow or deny this request. So many web browsers and mobile operating systems like iOS have permission structures built in when APIs request access to applications and their data. Let me now talk about the types of APIs. Designing, implementing, and maintaining APIs for the web is critical to many companies' business models. And one API doesn't, fit all, doesn't suffice all the needs. There are four main types of APIs that are often used. Open APIs are open source application programming interfaces you can access with the HTTP protocol, also known as public APIs. They have, defined API endpoints and request and response formats. Partner APIs are able to connect strategic business partners. Typically, developers access these APIs in self-service mode through a public API developer portal. Still, they need to complete an onboarding process and get login credentials to access partner APIs. Then there are internal APIs that remain hidden from external users. So these private APIs aren't available for users outside of the company and are instead intended to improve internal processes and communication across different internal development teams. And then there are composite APIs that combine multiple data or service APIs together. They allow programmers to access several endpoints in a single call. So composite APIs are useful in microservices architecture, where performing a single task may require information from several resources. Now, what I really like about and admire about Black Hills is they're always at the forefront of technology. They're always embrace the latest and the greatest, whether it's with automation, through AI, or with APIs. And to talk more about that, I'm going to hand it over to the CTO of Black Hills, Tom Marlowe. Over to you, Tom.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
Dr. Reggae, sorry to interrupt you, Tom.
No, jump
Dr.
in.
Reggae, there's a quick question here that maybe that you might have some insight on. The question is, I am a senior product manager and I want to know how to communicate with APIs through the Internet of Things. Can I make XML calls directly to user devices through notification systems using Amazon Web Services?
Yes.
I think this is, okay, go ahead.
Yes. So there are different, I would say, standards for communication. XML is one standard. The other is JSON, which is JavaScript object notification. So depending on the kind of API, if you have an existing service, that can certainly make calls, and XML is one possibility. Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Reggae. Tom.
All right. Yeah, thanks. All right. So on the next slide here, I think I'll start with an analogy, if I can. Let's see. Can we move to the next slide? Perfect. Okay, so we're all familiar with some of these businesses and business models on the left: Blockbuster, Borders, Tower Records, Sam Goody, and the like. Their core business models were supplanted by what? This is probably not breaking news for anybody, but we can see some of the options that these have been replaced by on the right. And at the end of the day, what we're talking about is effectively better delivery mechanisms. Okay, so on the next slide, if we look specifically at the Blockbuster model, you had all this local physical distribution. You were tied typically to your local store, to their movie availability, and all that physical space all that manual handling of physical media, all that adds what we might call a burden or waste in the process. So this might be in terms of time, burden on customer experience, and cost, of course. All of these things add up to extra steps that have a cost. And these things really made these types of models just ripe for change. Okay, on the next slide, we can see these business models were disrupted thanks to technology advancements that allowed customers to really to achieve their end goal, say watching movies, reading books, listening to music, in a more convenient, more efficient, quicker, higher volume, and less expensive way. And that's where streaming services have become more popular. Now, what we're seeing is this same kind of sea change in our industry. Traditional docketing systems and docketing has been done by receiving a mailed correspondence, generally reading it, typing it into a docketing system, and then reviewing things also within that docketing system. You know, a lot of human elements, and really all these steps are kind of akin to driving to Blockbuster, perusing the shelves, and picking out a movie, but for IP. So on the next slide, we can see the adoption of digital data and correspondence delivery and API-based integrations. These are the technological and the infrastructure changes that are changing our traditional model. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like on the next slide. I think we've got a diagram here. So by leveraging our, I guess you could call it our equivalent of streaming data, these modern data services allow us to avoid having to use humans to move data. And don't get me wrong, humans are great. I'm friends with a few of them, but they are much better at doing things other than moving data from one place to another. In 2023, there's really no reason that a digital document should require somebody to press fingers on a mechanical keyboard to translate that data from one place to another. It just, you know, it doesn't make sense. And more importantly, that sounds like a risk factor and not really something that you want in the legal profession, or definitely something you want to look at avoiding. You know, really, not to mention, it's also a waste of human potential. So here's the kicker. With improvements in PTO data availability, and I have to mention that the USPTO has really made some great strides in recent years, we're able to kind of advance to the point where this streaming style of data can be leveraged as the source of truth. So over the last many years, the source of truth, meaning like, where are you going to go to find out exactly where you are in prosecution or key matter data, has been a docketing system. But I've got to say, in the many audits that I've seen of docketing system data over the years, one common thing is that the data is rarely perfect. In some cases, upwards of 5% of that data, and we're talking about important fields too, are incorrect. And this could be incorrect because a digit was transposed. It could be incorrect because a priority date was entered into a filing date field, or the filing date was populated with the local filing date when it should have been the effective filing date. There's all kinds of different variables that could go into having data being wrong. In some cases, they're not impactful. In some cases, they're incredibly impactful. At the end of the day, though, we're moving into an era here where using the PTO as a source of truth and better standardized communications and data input is what's going to tremendously improve the things that we're going to do and help us innovate. And to be honest, it opens up other doors too. So on the next slide, the great thing here is that we've got these technological innovations that we're seeing in the industry right now. We're all in the middle of it. And technological innovation promotes further innovation. Just like Netflix made it easier to search and find movies that you wanted to watch, made it, I guess they introduced things like remote viewing parties if you're into that. They've sped up distribution channels to get produced shows and movies to customers more quickly. So too in our industry, these data movement improvements open up more and more opportunities for further innovation. Intelligent and connected cloud services, these would be, say, tools running behind the scenes, where these are areas where I think we're going to see a lot of the future of innovation for the IP field kind of bubbling up. With the right data connections, these types of services can obtain perfect data from its source, say PTO data, for example, and populate into a docketing system or countless other tasks with higher reliability and greater speed because of those data connections, because of those API type endpoints that Dr. Rege was just talking about. Okay, so let's take a look at some ways that this technology can really improve on how we operate and how we communicate IP data. So Adam, who we've got on the line here too, as our automation leader at Black Hills, why don't you jump in here and talk a little bit about what you're seeing as far as advancement in this area?
Definitely. Thanks, Tom. Mm-hmm. So what we're looking at here is, what a future of an API solution might look like in terms of a central data hub exchange. So when you think about how a lot of information is conveyed these days, even within our field, there are a lot of emails which are noisy, difficult to track. They vary in format, attachments. Sometimes you're not even getting everything you need with an email. But data is being tracked by the patent offices, the law firms, foreign agents, often in many different ways for the same thing. What if we had a one-stop shop central repository that's structured and standardized? Think, the application numbers, publications, date formats, they're all stored in a consistent manner and could be used as that single source of truth. It would then be available for analysis and driving workflows such as docketing, which we're going to talk about on this next slide here. So Tom previously noted, from a high level, docketing consists of identifying a matter to docket into, identifying a document or a docketing event, extracting that key data from a document, and then selecting the correct workflow within your management system and inputting the necessary data. Within that process, there's noise from imperfect communication methods. People often have to make judgment calls, and we just, don't want to have that potential for risk or incorrect docketing. By using automated docketing and communicating via APIs, we can reduce that. We get structured data from a patent office, and that will include the dates and the numbers and the documents, just the documents we need to identify what's going on and push it into an IP management system. In fact, looking at this view, the majority of the docketing process is encompassed by the PTO API and the automated docketing AI. And the pushing of data into an IP management system is actually a small portion of it. It's been universalized on the front end so that only the selection of the workflow within the IPM varies. And you could even enter into one or more IPMs based on a single docketing event. Think of a scenario where you need your management system updated as well as that of a client for a single document. So that's the kind of future we're looking at on the docketing side. Next slide, please. And back to Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That's great. That's particularly one of the areas that we focus on at Black Hills, and we really think is kind of a big part of where this industry is heading as far as data communication. But it
Hey,
really.
Tom, we have one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I see the question that I think we've got a good slide on it in a few slides from here.
Okay, very good.
Yep. So in addition to the automated docketing processing, there's some more cool features that can come out of that process. And the next few slides that we have are going to kind of go over a few of those. So this first one is where we've got the PTO data, and you've got the IP management system data, and then that cloud-based service in communication with the PTO and in times in communication with the IP management system is able to perform automated paralegal type services. So some really good examples that you can think of here are shell creation. So as a non-final office action is being processed for docketing, that can trigger off another module to say, grab the appropriate data that you need to start building a template shell for the response. And that way, not only does the response and its deadlines, or the office action and its response deadlines get docketed over into the IP management system, but almost instantaneously, you can have the shell being created automatically and reduce the kind of redundant paralegal time that would be needed to create that shell, or at least help it so that a lot of the work is done along the way. Another good example here is in filing as well. So for filing, we can even have a communication back to the PTO, say for a response filing, for example, where the APIs can communicate with the PTOs to actually effectuate those filings based on documents that are provided. So say a response is built in one of these systems, then with button presses, they can go back into the system. On the next slide, we've got kind of a similar flow, but instead of docketing services in the middle box, we've got intelligent prosecution assistance. So what does this mean exactly? This might be something that a patent attorney works with directly, where, again, let's use an office action and response as an example, but where we can do preparation in the response for the argument, where we can provide analytics, leverage some language tools to do some of the actual language writing or drafting, potentially some proofing as you're going through. One interesting idea here, and this is going to be a shameless plug, but the U.S. Patent Prosecutor's Desk Reference is in my humble opinion, a nice reference for finding good case law-based arguments against rejections. A tool like this could leverage data like that to drop canned arguments directly into a response so that it's ready, or so that they're available at a button click or a mouse drag for an attorney to work with. But I think the key takeaway here is, again, on the prosecution side here, based on the data from the IP management system, based on the data from the USPTO, maybe some external data sources as well, we can start pulling together things that make the attorney's work even easier. On the next slide, we've got API solutions that could be used for automated reporting. So reporting and analysis, we're talking about providing summaries of communications from the patent office. We're talking about preparing report outs. These could be internal firm or corporate report outs. These could be client-facing report outs based on standard or custom merged base templates. So again, imagine as a document is being processed from the patent office, say it's a notice of allowance. You could have something that automatically summarizes the scope of protection. You could have something that puts together a custom report out, pulls the client contact information from the IP management system, puts it into an email, sends it out directly to the client, and now they've got their report out the same day that the USPTO has released the item. This is one that we're seeing become more and more popular. On the next slide, this is one I'm glad this slide is in here, because this one really is true to form, and I think will strike a chord with many on the call here. Transfers between firms in and out are a particularly risky area of practice. As we know, when client data is being moved from one system to another system, the output in the input process is subject to error. The time that it takes, there are actions that could happen in the interim, making some of the reports and, say, docket tracking that finally gets in maybe out of date. By having a standardization tool sitting between systems and confirming data from the PTO as, again, the source of truth, data integrity can really be heightened and ensured, and the process can be shortened significantly. Anyone familiar with these transfers knows how mind-numbingly long the process can take from receiving data from the originating firm to confirming the open dates. And it's not always smooth. So imagine being able to just take a list of matters, or maybe even a customer number, and click transfer and have them moved within minutes or same day with data validation. This is the type of thing that really can be a reality and would save a lot of time and heartache, I know, in our industry. So speaking of validation, second eye review is another hot area for a data-centric process. This is one of my favorites too, to talk about. First of all, if you've been on any of our earlier webinars, you've probably heard me say error identification in docketing is very difficult for humans. And that's because if you're reviewing docketing, you're reviewing mostly correct data, because folks that do docketing are good at what they do. So 99% of the time, a high percentage of the time, it's going to be correct. So you're reviewing correct data, then looking at another matter and reviewing correct data, then correct data, then correct data, and you're looking for that needle in the haystack. And that's hard to do because eyes gloss over seeing correct data after correct data and number transpositions or data that looks correct but is in the wrong field, really hard to catch. Computers, on the other hand, are great at this process. And that's why we like to use them. And additionally, some of the errors that happen are real, what you might call edge cases. They happen infrequently. So it's hard to have people kind of prepared for what some of these edge case errors are. And they can be kind of really varied from matter to matter, or from system to system. And this is where machine learning can be really helpful in what we call anomaly detection. By training up a machine learning model on what data should look like, it can look and try and see if there's any anomalies. And you train it to throw more false positives and err on the side of throwing a few extra errors, but that helps catch those anomalies that would be otherwise very difficult to catch. In any event, processes like these can identify possible suspected errors, and then you bring a human into the loop, typically a knowledgeable docketer or paralegal, to review and figure out what the data should have been, figure out if it is actually an error, and then even provide system feedback so that it's even better next time. And that's another reason why I kind of like this, because this is an evolving system. Each time that users review and provide feedback on the errors that have happened or been called out, the system gets better and better. On the next slide, and to relate to one of the questions that's in the open Q&A, this is another option related to cross citations. This is one that we're hearing more and more about kind of in the industry, being able to pull down and utilize citation data as they occur. So a lot of times the way this works is, as items are being passed through the system, say for docketing, references, citations may be identified. So these might be on 892s with the USPTO. These might be identified on foreign prosecution items. In any event, as they're being processed, by leveraging data collection and API communication with other modules, those references can be transmitted into a reference and citation process. So then from there, they can be determined. Either you leverage some of the IDS management that is done in docketing systems, or they go into an IDS management module itself to help determine which matters should they apply to. So say US pending matters, Israeli matters, that type of item, or be stood up for review to determine whether or not they are material by an attorney. This type of process, in addition, can backfill and double check data by connecting to things like the Common Citation DB, which is part of the Global Dossier Project, some of the reference data that's available from USPTO's Patent Center, data from the EPO, et cetera, for confirming and grabbing appropriate information for putting together IDSs. And the real beauty of this too is there are times when the speed of these types of processes is critical. So as related family members are in an allowance stage or approaching issuance, the sooner you can get these things identified and put on somebody's plate for review, the better, so that you don't have to deal with costly potential RCEs or pulling items from issuance. So what are the key takeaways from the discussion that we're having today? And I think one is with respect to the impact on manual labor. So I think it should be clear manual docketing, manual data entry is on its way out. Some paralegal and attorney tasks are following the same path, especially the ones that are what you might call highly administrative, highly repetitive. These are being replaced by automation. They're being replaced by tools. Although I think in many cases, we're going to still see a human in the loop. We're going to see a reduction in several of the tasks that work through the workflow. On the next slide, the other thing to take away here is that intelligent data processing systems, so these are the systems that have the key communication between other modules, communication with systems, communication with PTO, and leveraging standardized processes. These are going to be critical elements in the workflows as we go forward. And, critical not only for trying to keep up with a modern, digitally transformed operation, but really critical for maintaining cost competitiveness. And it's a type of thing that I think firms ought to be at least investigating if they're not diving into it already. IP management systems, of course, have their role. They're still important for calendaring dates, driving some workflows, especially internal type workflows. At the end, though, having endpoints, APIs, and the ability to take in and communicate out data to other systems without the need for a person with a keyboard, that's really the gating element, and that's going to determine whether or not a practice can kind of move forward in today's digital economy. It's really good to take a look at what systems you have and what you're planning, and to be aware if your systems are on the Blockbuster model or the Netflix model. So we get questions from time to time on the IP management systems that we know of with APIs and data access. We work with just about all of the systems in the industry. And these are the ones that we've probably worked with the most successfully, and look forward to continuing to do so.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
I think the one piece there to reiterate, though, is that systems with APIs provide firms and corporations opportunities to grow and be open to new innovation. And when IP management systems don't have an API, you end up kind of in this locked, closed environment without interoperability with, other systems, and it limits the way that future technologies can integrate with your existing system. So there's one question, Tom, kind of along these lines. I don't know if you see that. Is there a way to go back in time to capture historic data associated with all your patent cases? We have been in practice for more than 20 years, and while adopting an AI docketing system might be great going forward, how do we get that to integrate with the 20 years of data that we have in our current system? So what would your recommendation there be, Tom?
Yeah, so I think there's maybe two possible ways to answer that. One is that all of the historical, especially if we're just talking about 20 years, give or take, data regarding transactions back and forth with the patent office, they're available. So you can get that data. There's a PEDS system where the patent office offers that data in bulk. There's ways to scrape more of that data, depending on what it is that you're trying to kind of build machine learning models off of. In addition to that, unless you're trying to build models that are specific to the way that maybe a particular firm has operated, working with a provider that has like generic or more general models built. So for example, Black Hills has been in business now for, geez, over a dozen years, right? In all that time, the docketing that we've done, even in the early days when it was done manual, is run through computerized systems. So we've been able to kind of capture and learn what official documents look like, and be able to build models then that can say, okay, that do effectively document identification. So I guess what I'm getting at is you can go and pull that data and try and build something yourself, or you can work with a partner who has the models already. And then the key piece is building in the data flows to leverage the model on your current and future data communication from patent offices going forward.
Okay, well, that sounds good. And the person who asked that question, I'll send you my email address in direct response, and feel free to reach out to me directly, and we can answer your questions. And the same for everybody on the call. If you have any questions that don't come to mind right now, but come to mind later, or you just didn't happen to ask them today, feel free to reach out to us directly, and we're glad to answer those for you. A simple way would be to email, you can just email sales@blackhillsip.com. And that one, I'll see those when they come in, as well as a few of our other people. And we'll be able to, reach out directly to you and get you an answer to your question, or set up a time to speak with you on the phone. So Tom, there's another question, Tom and Adam, there's another question with specific regard to AppColl. And that question is, are these referenced AppColl APIs private? Their support folks told me they don't have public APIs. I know you can export data in an automated fashion to S3 buckets, et cetera, but no structured data via APIs as far as I know. And I think we are a good company to ask that question to, because we work with a lot of customers who use AppColl. So do you have any thoughts on that, Tom?
Yeah. So the way that we connect with AppColl isn't necessarily like a traditional API connection, but it does effectively the same type of thing. So we tend to kind of lump that in with the others that have a more traditional type of API. It's still private, and I think that's worth mentioning too. These connections require authentication. So as when we're talking about pulling, whether that means private data, unpublished data from the patent office, or whether it means pulling data out of or pushing data into docketing systems, these are all technically private connections post encrypted authentication. So that's very important to recognize. But with AppColl, there are ways that we get data in, pull data out on an automatic basis, but it's not a traditional kind of API-based communication currently.
Okay, very good. So why don't we go ahead, if there's any more questions, go ahead and submit those, and we will get you an answer if we can on the call. Otherwise, we'll follow up with you. So let's move on to the next slide here. And then here's a listing of some of the services that Black Hills IP provides. We offer our shared docket, automated intelligence powered automated docketing. That is end-to-end automated docketing. There's different providers on in the market today where there's claims of automated docketing, and while that's true in some regards, it's operating under a different definition than Black Hills IP generally. When we refer to automated docketing, we're talking end-to-end automated docketing, from determining what processing the correspondence and determining what the various due dates are and getting those into your system, along with the correspondence, but also an automated verification process that Tom referred to earlier. And what we end up with is a automated double docketing solution, 4 eyes on your docketing. So that's full end-to-end automated docketing. No human involved in most of your docketing. There are occasionally exceptions where things pop out for whatever reasons, something that doesn't look quite right, or we're not 100% sure about how to process an item. And we can have output that for humans to look at. But in general, we're talking 100% end-to-end docketing, or end-to-end automated docketing. So we also have our Power Prosecutor product, which can provide office action response shells in an automated manner, delivered either by email or stored to a particular storage location, but also an online authoring tool. And those are powered by artificial intelligence, and they're automated. Your shells are available essentially the moment that we scrape your pair data, and are able to generate that shell right away. No waiting. Your shell will be available at the same time as your docketing. No late night frantic efforts by attorneys trying to generate their own shells because one's not available. It's just automatically available. We also have automated reporting, reporting to your clients, reporting inside your firm or your company that correspondence from the USPTO or wherever has been received, but that's the EPO or whatnot. And that happens essentially at the same time as we can generate these automated shells, and at the same time we're performing your docketing. It's very automated processes. We also have AI automated docketing error detection, as Tom mentioned. We have a artificial intelligence driven prosecution cost estimator, and automated IDS data updates into your systems, and that can speed things up from whether that's processing a notice of references cited or references cited in other matters in different locations. So we are very automated, and we're looking to automate more and more processes to simplify things for your staff, to increase the speed at which your practice can operate, increase the transparency for your clients into what's going on with their matters. Essentially immediate reporting. There's no more 3, 4, 5 day lag for reporting out matters to your customers. I know that your clients want to know, many clients want to know right away when things have happened, and we're able to do that for you in an automated way. There's one other thing that has been kind of game changing in prosecuting patent applications at the USPTO that saves firms and clients money. And that is using our pair alerts to do things such as identify a pair status change when you have filed an after action response, by the 2-month date, or at least certainly prior to the 3-month date. And if you're able to identify when an advisory action is coming, which you can do with our pair alerts, we can identify it in time to be able to file a further response without having to incur additional extension fees. And so that saves not only client money. But if there's any delay that's on, falls on the shoulders of the law firm, that can save the law firm, their own money. But in addition to that, even if the client is responsible for an extension fee, it reduces the amount of cash that a law firm needs to outlay on behalf of their client. So it can help not only in maintaining, relationships with your clients and saving them money, but it can also, reduce your cash outlay. There's one more question here. Let me take a look at that real quick. So there's a question about any future consideration for Black Hills IP opening up our own APIs to customers to expose more automated access to these cloud services. Yes, we are actively talking about ways that we can open up our services so that they can be called or accessed by other entities to be able to leverage what we do. And in fact, we do that with some of our deployments as well already. So yeah, we are working really hard to be a participant in this open services, open data environment. We want to be your partner moving forward from a strategic standpoint. We want to help you quicken your practice and work with the providers that you choose, and we would like to provide you as many of those services ourselves that we can. And if we can facilitate you utilizing the services of others, we see it as a win-win for everybody. Let's see, there's one more question here. What is being used to teach the system? What data is being fed and where does it come from? We have a lot of different processes that we execute on a daily basis. We have our own experience or our own data from processing things ourselves. And Tom, maybe you can speak to that a little bit further.
Yeah, we use a number of things, mostly public data, for the training that we do. So we'll grab data from the USPTO, identify what types of documents they are, using our professional docketers and our automation team, and use those types of identifications along with a very vast expert system that we've developed over the years to identify certain components of documents and help use those as different features for driving the machine learning. That's a real high level view of it without getting too much into the weeds. But that's typically how it depends on the application that we're talking about. There's other pieces where, like, say there's a project that we have for doing cost projecting, and in that the key is about projecting what the next actions may or may not be on a matter in prosecution. And again, leveraging public PTO data to look at trends and I'll allow machine learning models to make those predictions.
That's very good, Tom. There was another question where somebody had their hand raised. It'd be best if you submitted that question by text, and we can handle it that way. If there's any other questions, feel free to submit those. And feel free, like I said, feel free to reach out to us at your convenience at sales@blackhillsip.com, and we can get you the answer to that as well. Also, you can use info@blackhillsip.com. I know some people are perhaps averse to talking to a salesperson occasionally. So, yeah, so that's fine. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I want to thank our participants. I think we've we've gone past an hour, I believe. But I want to thank our participants. But most importantly, I want to thank those who connected up and asked us questions today and stayed until the end. I think this has been an informative webinar, and I appreciate it, Dr. Reggae and Tom and Adam. Thank you very much. And we hope you'll join us again on another webinar in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.